West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël.
Never Seen video, obtained exclusively by CNN's Tierney Sneed. You watch and see how obvious and ugly the former president's intent is. Started with lies about caravans of brown people coming for your women, taking your jobs, and bringing drugs, and ended with a mob of red hats convinced to attack the government, trumpeted as the cause of all that concern. The proof of his purpose is in his people. You'll see names: Sidney Powell, Rudy Giuliani, others, under oath, on camera, depositions. Lawsuit by a former executive with Dominion Voting Systems who claims he was defamed by the Trump campaign. Giuliani, Powell, prominent conservatives. The defendants are moving to dismiss the case. That's pending. But they did do the depositions, and on video you'll hear how they lay out the objective, namely feeding fears. Not with facts. Facts be damned. No proof of truth necessary. Case in point, a conspiracy theory that has been played mostly for laughs. Bizarre claim, made on national TV. 2 American companies were working with a dead Venezuelan dictator. Absurd, yet absorbed. Listen.
We had a report that the heads of Dominion and Smartmatic, somewhere in the mid-teens, 2013, 14, whatever, went down to Venezuela for a get-to-know meeting with Maduro so they could demonstrate to Maduro the kind of vote fixing they did for Chavez.
Barely say it, let alone believe it. Fallen man. From America's mayor to Trump's stooge. A former federal prosecutor who says repeatedly he couldn't be bothered to verify whether any of the claims he was making were backed up by facts.
You say the heads of Dominion and Smartmatic?
Yes, that's what I was told. Before the press conference, I was told about it. Sometimes I go and look myself online when stuff comes up. This time I didn't have the time to do it. It's not my job in a fast-moving case to go out and investigate every piece of evidence that's given to me. Otherwise, you're never going to write a story, you never come to a conclusion.
First of all, it wasn't a case. It was and is a con. And Rudy likely knew it. Now, why would I say that? Because the Trump camp had a memo debunking the claims of election fraud, yet they didn't say a word. Under oath, Sidney Powell, forced to admit that getting to the truth was never an objective.
You had the ear of a number of conservative media outlets. Why did you not ask to provide a statement correcting that the misstatement that you had recorded?
That didn't seem to be the material part of the inquiry.
Material part. The truth wasn't material? Now look, you'll say, hey look, in politics they all lie. That's not true, but you can feel that way. I understand why you would. You don't have good reason to be cynical right now. But just know, if you or anyone decides to still put stock in Trump's sludge, you now know you are buying a bunch of lies designed to destroy confidence in government. Listen to the response to why the trumpets would ignore a report that corrected their assertions done by the Department of Homeland Security on the integrity of the election.
I'm asking if the Trump campaign read this and considered it.
Not to my knowledge.
Why would they not have read this? It comes from the U.S. government.
Objective Form and Foundation.
Rudy's justification for spreading sputum is that everybody does it. So what we have here is a battle to the bottom.
I want to play some sound that CNN obtained exclusively. Rudy Giuliani, the former mayor of New York City, the former president's lawyer, deposed in a defamation case dealing with Dominion voting systems and these other voting systems here. I just want to play the former mayor here. Let's see it.
We had a report that the heads of Dominion and Smartmatic, somewhere in the mid-teens, 2013, 14, whatever, went down to Venezuela for a get-to-know meeting with Maduro so they could demonstrate to Maduro the kind of vote fixing they did for Chavez.
You say the heads of Dominion and Smartmatic?
Yes, that's what I was told. Before the press conference, I was told about it. Sometimes I go and look myself online when stuff comes up. This time I didn't have the time to do it. It's not my job in a fast-moving case to go out and investigate every piece of evidence that's given to me. Otherwise, you're never going to write a story. You never come to a conclusion.
So we'd known some of that content before. It had been reported, but we hadn't seen it before. Giuliani basically saying he repeated things out loud at a press conference that he never bothered to check at all.
In order to win a libel case like this, the plaintiffs have to show what's called reckless disregard for the truth. That deposition to me looks like the definition of reckless disregard for the truth. I mean, the idea that you will go out in public and damage the reputation, as Giuliani clearly did of these companies, without any sort of checking, without any sort of concern for whether what you're saying is true, seems to me clearly libelous, and I just think Giuliani would be on the hook for millions of dollars because the libel is supposed to address harm to reputation. These companies' reputations were horribly damaged by these total falsehoods that he put out there with, it seems to me, reckless disregard for the truth. So I think these libel cases are going to be disastrous for him, and they may well be disastrous for the media outlets, including Fox News, that put it on uncritically.
What about his demeanor? What did you make about his demeanor and overall appearance? And how much does that matter in a case like this?
Well, if a case ultimately goes to a jury, it could matter a great deal because jurors evaluate how people behave and how they look and how they sound. And his complete failure, it appears, to recognize the seriousness of what he was doing and the impact of what he was doing, and his complete lack of interest and lack of curiosity and lack of work in determining what he was saying was true or even had any factual basis at all other than something someone told him. It's just outrageous.
Yeah, I mean, he just said out loud, I didn't go check the facts at all before I repeated them.
At all.
It is Friday,
the 5th of November of 2021, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunnar the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef, and our daily special is Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. That's right, because we are all Nighthawks in the Diner of Life. Yes. Well, we've got the virtual French 77s virtually mixed and poured for your virtual imbibing pleasure, but I gotta tell you, it's a little too early for me, even virtually. That French 77 is a potent spirit. It is. So take care. If you are imbibing in the analog world, have a friend. Have a friend stand by. Hey, looks like that jobs report came in, and boy, it's great. You wouldn't know it if you were watching the news, though. God. Would have been nice to have a little bit of, hey, look what Biden's been doing, instead of look how bad Biden has been doing. Mm-hmm. Blame everything on Joe. Manchin's out there saying, I am not going to have a child tax credit or parental leave, as he's driving a Maserati. All right. I saw the video of the environmental protesters in the parking garage as they were blocking his Maserati from continuing out the structure. They were in the structure. And I suppose some might construe that as being, a terrible thing for those protesters to do. Very unseemly. It was not a sight that would play well in Peoria or even Peoria. Before and right there. Anyway, the takeaway I got mostly, the protesters were protesting, and no one likes that when they're being blocked. But the takeaway I had is that this guy has a yacht, and he drives an $80K Maserati. And then he's telling people, oh, yeah, well, we need some responsibility here. We need people, we have to have a means test. If they want to have parental leave, they have to have a means test. They got to prove they're working. I think to get the parental leave from your job kind of means that you're working, Joe. All right. How is it that this guy made all this money? Do they just hand it to the most dim-witted types who say yes? I got to tell you, that's exactly what they do. The accumulation of money has nothing to do with smarts. Man. Okay, well, I have some pet peeves on that. In that arena, but we're not going to go there because we have other things to speak about. My God. So, the jobs report is an indication of things that could have been reported before Tuesday's elections around the country. Could have. But it wasn't. And makes you wonder. It does. Makes you really wonder, like, what does the media have in mind? I'll tell you what the media has in mind. They're big business. And Nazism, fascism would not have existed without it being closely wedded, or the closely wedded alliance of business, corporations to be exact, and government. And here we are. Yes, here we are. The January 6th committee has indicated they will be, or intimated, No, I think they actually indicated that they will be handing down a slew of subpoenas. Liz Cheney says they got 150 witnesses. The analysis on that is that's going to make McCarthy a little frightened. Well, yeah, that's good. But I'm looking at some other frightened individuals, Trump and Putin. Mm-hmm. As an aside, the son of the FSB director who runs the department in the FSB that tracks down dissidents and pretty much poisons them and kills them or throws them out of 5-story buildings. His son had one of those convenient 5-story falls. I don't know. Well, what does it mean? It's convenient, though. convenient. This is usually under the purview of Putin. So it makes me wonder what the FSB director did, or what did the kid do? And when I say kid, I mean he's the kid of the FSB director running that department. But convenient. I guess we'll hear a little bit more about that. Maybe he was gonna testify somewhere against the family. You don't testify against the family. That's how mobsters work. So, back to old Trump there. He's going to be sitting for another deposition. You just know it. And it may be from the January 6th committee. But he's got some other civil matters. You know, I guess the civil matters are the only thing that really gets him to show up. Mm-hmm. And even then, he equivocates, and I suppose that's just a nice way of saying that he lies. He's going to use a diminished capacity defense at some point. You just know he will. So, we have Rudy at the top there, explaining why he lied. He was under oath. His tone of voice dramatically changes when he knows he's, he might be culpable, held culpable. It'd be nice if these fellows and gals were held culpable. And as the cries for Merrick Garland to resign because of the slow pace or no pace in indicting, taking to court, trying to figure out what the hell went on, while at the same time this Durham guy is arresting people for exposing the fact that Trump had Russian help. Let's remind ourselves, one of the first things that Trump did when he took office was dismantle the intelligence apparatus that was looking at Vlad. Peter Strzok was a bigwig in that investigation. So, yeah, let's dirty him up with, some sort of sexual dalliance with a, quote, subordinate or his partner. While at the same time, Trump is on tape saying, I grab him by the you-know-what. It's all Russian strategy. It's all so convenient. And we knew it. We could see it. Maybe Merrick Garland and those types don't see it. Maybe they're too far inside the whole machinery of the machine that they just can't see beyond the fact that they're cogs. They don't have a holistic view of what the hell is going on. Maybe. I'll tell you what I suspect. Trump's strategy, and he's voiced it loud and clear for decades and decades and decades, which is also the strategy of mobsters and nation-state mobsters, and that is to get dirt, coma prompt, on everybody and hold it over their head like a sword of Damocles, and then you get to decide whether you're going to go after the guy or not when they got the dirt on you. So I don't know what kind of dirt they got on Merrick. I don't know what it is that's frightened him so that he can't go after obvious traitors to the United States of America. I was going through the old memory loops about the Oklahoma City trial, and I was a little bit concerned about how far-ranging that conspiracy was and how it was honed down to just less than half a dozen. Because you had the Nichols, too. So father and son, but and the wives were involved here to a lesser extent. But they had a platoon of folks at least in that cell. And I often wondered why the Justice Department didn't nip this in the bud and go after these people. I still do. So when Merrick Garland is lauded for what he did in terms of bringing Timothy McVeigh and the Nichols to heel, we need to also remember that there were scores of folks that they pretty much said, thanks. You can go on your way now. Why? Because it doesn't seem like they went back to live normal lives. And I'm not talking necessarily about these individuals that were let go. I'm talking about the broader aspect of that movement. You get a slap on the wrist, keep on going. Too many slaps on the wrist. We got Jenna Ryan, the Texas real estate lady, who said, "No one's throwing me in jail. I'm blonde, pretty with blue eyes. I'm pretty and white." Yeah, well, she got 60 days. And now she's all pissed off because she was smeared on social media. No, it was your words, lady. All right. And I don't think she's going to have her real estate license. No one's going to pay the E&Os on that. Errors and omissions. No, they don't want any errors and omissions from her. Plus, maybe, I don't know. There could be a slew of clients that she could find domiciles for. I don't think they would be actually buying domiciles. We'll say investments. Investment property. Okay. Oh, so then we have the lady with 9 kids, the family with 9 kids, 12 gallons of milk a week. And I looked up the numbers. She's taking in foster kids. That's why she's got 9 kids. $300 to $400 a month per kid. Okay? She's whining about Joe Biden. Joe Biden's made it so hard. Yeah, he's made it so hard. The Democratic Party has made it so hard for people. This lady can have 9 kids, make $300 a pop or more, can get 12 gallons of milk for their kids, and have all the food delivered. And she's talking about what a burden it all is. Oh, I might also add, neither one of them, the parents of this family business, shall we call it, has a second job to make ends meet, to put 12 gallons of milk on the table a week. And they're whining about how bad it is with Joe Biden. Now let's juxtapose that just a bit, and I put it on social media and you probably saw it. A black mom feeding her kids government cheese is spoiling her kids and making them lazy. But the family business mom, white mom, who pours 12 gallons of milk a week for 9 kids where she's getting $300 a pop per kid, is loving, nurturing, and kind. 2 Americas? No, we live in one America, but there's a subset there. They don't want to give it up. I was reading some analysis, not just by Carville either, okay, where the argument is that we, the Democrats, have to stop thinking that we're giving up something. It's not we that fear about giving up something. The Republicans are known for their mindset that equality to them means that they have to give up something. They're giving up their rights so someone else can be equal. And what they're giving up in terms of what they consider their rights is to be a bully, lord over people, and do whatever the hell they want. 11 whites on a jury in the Aubrey trial, 1 black. Same numbers in the Rittenhouse trial. Judges that seem, shall we say, not quite up to the task. Though you got the one out there in Kenosha who's playing for the cameras. He's having his moment. He's had a few moments already. I don't know how he's still on the bench. Oh, I forgot it's Wisconsin. And then the Aubrey trial. Yep, I think there's going to be some appeals in that one. I don't know what's going to happen with Rittenhouse. I still don't understand. A kid crosses state lines, acquires a gun illegally, and then kills people because of a racial component, political component. And somehow he is the victim? All right. We know. And I suppose the only way to overcome that is, I still say it's ballots over bullets. They got a lot of bullets. But no matter what impediment is put in their way, I know a group in the South, for instance, who has never thought that was an issue. Oh, you're putting another obstacle in our way for equality and due process? We always find a way. We could learn if we only allowed ourselves to learn. All right. Well, I know who I'm listening to, and I have for quite a while. All right. If Auntie Maxine says something, I listen. And she's not the only one either. I'm just saying. All right, what's on the menu here? Oh, it's Friday, isn't it? We're just rambling on. We better get into the curated part of the show here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy's Bistro Cafe. On the rest of the menu, 200 House Republicans voted to allow age discrimination against job applicants. You know, and all these guys are old, too, and I say guys. All right. After Virginia, the GOP plans to forcefully race bait as a core piece of their strategy in the 2022 midterm elections. Well, we already know that. They already are. And Robert Santos was confirmed as the next US Census Bureau director, becoming the first person of color to lead the nation's largest statistical agency. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where the Bank of England confounded market expectations and held UK interest rates steady. And Sweden moved closer to getting its first woman prime minister. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Of course, you know that near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, to the right of the page there, is the chat room link. And thank you, Kelly, for monitoring that chat room. Across from the chat room near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, there is, of course, as you know, the link to our Patreon site. And yes, we need money. So if you could afford an espresso-type coffee drink and send those funds our way once a month, we're able to stretch those dollars beyond compare, pay our bills, and continue this resistance against the hostile takeover of the United States of America. We cannot allow it to happen. Thank you for your generosity in allowing us to fulfill our civic duty as the founders originally intended. You can follow Netroots Radio on Twitter by going to @NetrootsRadio. Thank you, Tom, for taking care of that. And you can follow me on Twitter @JusticePutnam. I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Codes about 10 minutes before showtime. Get that linked up on Twitter and other social media platforms. You know who they are. Follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West. And please, if you would, pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, etc., etc., etc. Okay. Oh, wow, man, we burned up a lot of time. It's Friday. Have a sip of this lovely French 77. Josh Israel of the American Independent brings us this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The House of Representatives passed a bill yesterday, Thursday, that would protect older job applicants from employment discrimination, but the vast majority of the Republicans voted against it. By a vote of 224 to 200, the House approved the Protect Older Job Applicants Act, a bill written explicitly to protect job applicants from age discrimination. Every Democratic member present and 7 Republicans voted yes. The remaining 200 Republicans all voted no. The Age Discrimination in Employment Act of 1967 protects workers over age 40 from employment discrimination based solely on their age. But Representative Sylvia Garcia, a Democrat from Texas, the author of H.R. 3992, the current bill, noted that some recent court rulings have restricted those protections to only those already employed and do not cover people applying for jobs. Ageism is still very much present in our society. Unfortunately, this negatively affects older Americans who are seeking to return to the workforce or transition into new careers, she said in a June press release, adding that more than 3/4 of older American workers see age discrimination as a barrier to attaining a job. But House Republicans argued that by banning discrimination, the bill might somehow actually hurt applicants. They also objected to the fact that people might hire attorneys to bring their discrimination cases to court. Oh my God, they're going to use the courts. Only we can do that. All right. Well, I love how the Republicans and, shall we call it the fascist party now? Because everything is backwards with them. Having a bill that prevents age discrimination is actually age discrimination. You know, this is newspeak, right? There's also commercials being run here in Southern Oregon, which I shall remind folks is a very conservative part of Oregon. So conservative that I think they are bringing back not just a couple sundown towns, but all of them. They're all coming back. Oathkeeper sheriffs strut around as if everything's okay, instead of the fact that they're seditionists, treason, traitors. So there's been commercials here about the negotiating for drug price bill, you know. And it's the gist of these commercials, and you've probably seen them in your market. The gist of it is that if we negotiate lower drug prices, that's actually a bad thing, because it'll fix the price. It'll fix the price, and that'll hurt us. And in the countries where they're able to fix the price, some people can't even get their medicine. I just love it. It's absolute lies. Absolute lies. Oh, did I tell you that the main employer in this region? Coke Industries. Because of lumber yards and mills and a few other things. Georgia Pacific, you know. When the House Education and Labor Committee reported the bill in September, the Republican members of the committee complained in the minority views accompanying the report. Committee Democrats are again rushing forward with ill-advised legislation that promotes their pro-trial lawyer agenda and harms job seekers. Really? Did you see the jobs report today? It's booming. Chris Beaumont, Aaron Morrison, and Will Wiesert of the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. Republicans plan to forcefully oppose race and diversity curricula, tapping into a surge of parental frustration about public schools as a core piece of their strategy in the 2022 midterm elections, a coordinated effort to supercharge a message that mobilized right-leaning voters in Virginia this week, in which Democrats dismiss as race baiting. Well, yeah, it is race baiting. Coming out of Tuesday's elections, in which Republican Glenn Youngkin, or is it Youngkin, won the governor's office after aligning with conservative parent groups. Yeah, right. The GOP signaled that it saw the fight over teaching about racism as a political winner, just like the Tea Party did back in the day, remember? This is all AstroTurf BS. This is not a new playbook. The race baiting and the AstroTurfing has been going on for quite a while. Let's be clear about that. Leader Kevin McCarthy, or House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, announced support for a Parents' Bill of Rights, opposing the teaching of critical race theory, an academic framework about systemic racism that has become a catch-all phrase for teaching about race in U.S. history. Parents are angry at what they view as inappropriate social engineering in schools and an unresponsive bureaucracy, said Phil Cox, a former executive director of the Republican Governors Association. Yeah, right? How about if we just call you Hans? Democrats were wrestling with how to counter the message. I don't know. Wrestling? How about we just punch the Nazis? Back to the article at hand. Some dismissed it, saying it won't have much appeal beyond the GOP's most conservative base. Others argued the party ignores the power of cultural and racially divisive debates at its peril. Look, if people can be brainwashed into taking bleach, horse paste, if they can be brainwashed into not wearing a mask, getting rid of even the polio vaccine, if they're already predisposed to feel that they are racially superior to all others already, how hard is it going to get them brainwashed into believing the teaching of race in history in the United States is a bad thing? I think they're already there. Schneider of the Associated Press brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Robert Santos was confirmed yesterday, Thursday, as the next US Census Bureau director, becoming the first person of color to lead the nation's largest statistical agency on a permanent basis. The Senate approved Santos, a third-generation Mexican-American statistician from San Antonio, Texas, for a job overseeing a bureau that conducts the once-a-decade census, often described as the nation's largest civilian mobilization, as well as surveys that create the data infrastructure of the nation. I think maybe there should have been a comma somewhere there, or I don't know. I don't think he's a third-generation Mexican-American statistician. I could be incorrect, but I think they mean just a third-generation Mexican-American. But we'll see. The new director inherits a Census Bureau workforce recovering from the execution of the most difficult headcount of U.S. residents in recent memory. The 2020 census was challenged last year by the pandemic, natural disasters, delays, and attempts at political interference by the Trump administration. The pandemic also disrupted one of the Census Bureau's most important programs, the one-year American Community Survey, which provides a wide-ranging picture of the U.S. on everything from commute times to education levels. Bureau officials announced earlier this year that the 2020 survey won't be released in its usual format this fall because of trouble collecting data during the pandemic. In his new job, Santos, age 66, a contemporary, will be responsible for leading the agency as it lays the groundwork for executing the next census in 2030, as well as shepherding the last releases of data gathered during the 2020 census and supervising other Bureau programs. During his confirmation hearing, Santos told senators that his dual passions were statistics and helping people. He is a former president of the American Statistical Association and was vice president and chief methodologist at the Urban Institute. Santos' predecessor, Stephen Dillingham, resigned last January in the middle of data crunching for the 2020 census, while facing criticism that he was acceding to Trump's demand to produce citizenship information at the expense of data quality. Bureau workers were under significant pressure from two Trump political appointees to figure out who was in the U.S. illegally, using federal, state, and administrative records, and Dillingham, also a Trump appointee, set a deadline for Bureau statisticians to provide him with a technical report on the effort, according to the Office of the Inspector General. The effort to gather citizenship information was abandoned a short time later. At the time, Dillingham described the events as a misunderstanding and said there were no potential violations of laws or regulations. Well, I think a court will decide differently now, won't they? Well, let's get to our break. And when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. This week, Dune. Frank Herbert's Dune is one of the most popular and most revered science fiction novels of all time, and within a few years of its publication, people were talking about film adaptations. But the book was too complex, too philosophical. It had a major battle and giant monsters. It was just too big. Now, 40 years and one attempt that director David Lynch all but disavows later, we may just have the movie production infrastructure, i.e. the epic trilogy, the technology, and the director to produce the adaptation that many feel this work deserves. One thing's for sure, we're all going to have to learn how to pronounce Denis Villeneuve. Denis Villeneuve of Sicario, of Arrival, of Blade Runner 2049, has stepped up to Dune and made a confident and solid version of the legendarily unadaptable masterwork, as if to say, I don't know what all the fuss has been about. It's got the Villeneuve touch, muted colors, a pensive pace, and tortured brooding characters. There's no flash to this Dune, no cheese. It's not space opera. It's a morally dirty neo-feudal world, and so the tech is allowed to be filthy and scuffed while being shaped in a styled utilitarianism. The costumes are elaborate but not ostentatious, royal but worn. So yeah, there are aristocrats in an interplanetary empire, but these are hard people living hard lives. Most interestingly, Villeneuve employs a compositional strategy in which people are constantly shrouded by smoke, by mist, by sand, by veils, by masks, by personal force fields, even by light itself. This strategy represents how everyone is guarded, how almost everyone is holding something in, whether it's secrets or motives or fears or doubts, and that feeds into the engine of the piece, which is tension. Villeneuve and co-writer Eric Roth, revisions by John Spate, give us a series of quiet, tense scenes in order to invest us in the political intrigue and make it mean something when the axe finally falls. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
What is so supreme about the Supreme Court? I mean, besides being housed in an imposing marble building, being the final stop on America's judicial train, and having its 9 members look photogenically authoritarian in those full-body black robes. And yes, its existence is written into the Constitution, but so is Congress, and no one thinks of it as anything supreme. We 330 million Americans are told we must obey the law as defined by a half-dozen unelected lawyers on this court. Why should we democratic citizens do that? After all, these legalistic elites have no actual power to force their personal beliefs on us. There's no Supreme Court army. In fact, their sole source of power is one that is intangible, extremely fragile, and easily frittered away: public trust. We should go along with their rulings only if they appear to be fair and honest, not based on personal whim or partisan ideology, and not meant to extend plutocratic power over the people. As Justice Elena Kagan rightly put it, the only way we can get people to do what we think they should do is because people respect us. That's where the present majority of far-right-wing appointees have failed so abjectly. Rather than meeting a lofty standard of judiciousness, all 6 have pulled the court down into the mire of crass Republican politics. They've corrupted the system and jiggered the law to decree that corporate campaign cash is free speech, that the state can take over women's bodies, that the Republican Party can unilaterally shut millions of voters out of America's voting booths, and so awful much more that enthrones the few over the many. This is Jim Hightower saying, respect? Trust? The Republican court is already down to 40% public approval rating, having surrendered its legitimacy to be a governing authority over us. Howdy-ho, folks. Thanks for tuning in and sharing my weekly commentaries. Also, please join me for a live web show I host every other Tuesday, the Hightower Lowdown Happy Hour at the Chat and Chew Cafe. You can join the action live online as I chat with grassroots leaders and progressive sparklies from around the country. Go to hightowerlowdown.org/chat-and-chew to find out about upcoming guests and watch past episodes. That's hightowerlowdown.org/chat-and-chew.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1916. That was the day when what came to be known as the Everett Massacre took place in Washington State. The Everett Shingle Workers Union had gone out on strike in May. Organizers from the industrial workers of the world came to the area to support the strike and to make a stand for free speech. Over the summer, tensions began to mount. The police began to arrest IWW speechmakers. Then, in August, violence erupted between strikebreakers and picketers at the Jameson Mill. The IWW decided to bring in a group of about 300 members for a free speech rally. They came from Seattle by 2 steamer boats. But the first boat was met at the docks by the sheriff and a large group of armed deputies. A gun battle broke out. One passenger, Ernest Nordstrom, told the harrowing tale of what happened to the Seattle Union Record, saying, quote, "I couldn't swear where the first shot came from, but as it comes to me, I thought the first shot was a warning shot not to go ashore. After that, there were shots, gee whiz, all kinds of shots. and when they commenced, all ran to the other side and the boat began to tip. The passengers avoided capsizing the boat and turned around to flee back to Seattle. At least 5 IWW members on board were killed, along with 2 of the deputies. After the violence, the Shingle Workers Union called off their strike. 74 IWW members were arrested, but only 1 stood trial. None were convicted. Ernest Nordstrom followed up with, "I'm sure there is no excuse for this whatsoever. There need have been no bloodshed." For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at laborhistoryin2.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River and the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 48 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting a high of only around 52. Occasional rain with winds light and variable, and we're expecting about 1/4 of an inch today, and then showers this evening, becoming a steady light rain overnight. Lows in the mid-40s, winds light and variable, bringing with it something a little less than 1/4 of an inch, and then cloudy with showers tomorrow. Highs around 51, winds out of the west-southwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour, bringing with it during the day something else again around 1/4 of an inch. And then we'll have some more rain, not less than 1/4 of an inch. And it looks like we may be getting an inch of rain on Sunday, Monday. So we'll report about that when the weekend ends. Confirmed cases of coronavirus in Jackson County in the southern part of Oregon are now at 237,054 cases, with 329 confirmed deceased. Ragweed pollen is rated low right here right outside the window here in Rogue River proper. The air quality index for the region is moderate at 59 parts per million because people are burning wood to keep warm. And the daytime UV index is low at level 2. Barometric pressure is holding steady at 30.04 inches. Visibility is down to 4 miles, and relative humidity is at 100%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. London is 50 degrees and partly cloudy. Paris is 53 and cloudy. Rome is 62 and partly cloudy. Kyiv is 60 degrees and fair. Kabul is 48 and clear. Hong Kong is 75 degrees and partly cloudy. Tokyo is 58 and clear. Sydney, Australia is 65 and partly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 51 degrees and partly cloudy. And New York is a brisk 44 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. And Keyless of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The Bank of England confounded market expectations and held UK interest rates steady yesterday, Thursday, saying it wanted to see what happens to unemployment after the British government ended a program that subsidized worker pay during the coronavirus pandemic. The decision to keep the bank's main interest rate at 0.1% was a surprise given the sharp pickup in consumer prices in recent months as a result of high energy costs, labor shortages, and other factors as the global economy recovers from the pandemic. It was a very close call, Bank Governor Andrew Bailey said in a briefing. We are in a situation where the calls are close. They're quite hard, but that's just a reflection of the position we are in. Financial markets had been increasingly pricing a rate raise to 0.25% over recent days, prompting some mortgage lenders to withdraw some of their cheapest loans. Market reaction to the decision was instant, with the pound selling off sharply against other currencies. Against the dollar, it was down 1% at $1.355 or $1.3555. The central bank's decision kept it in line with other leading economies, with the European Central Bank and U.S. Federal Reserve recently leaving interest rates unchanged. The Fed, however, announced on Wednesday that it would start winding down a stimulus program it put in place during the pandemic to keep a lid on inflation. The vote by the Bank of England's Rate-Setting Monetary Policy Committee was 7-2 in favor of keeping the rate unchanged. The two members who voted for a hike said it was necessary because of strong domestic and global cost pressures, according to minutes accompanying the decision.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière, la promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Staff at Reuters brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Finance Minister Magdalena Andersson moved a step closer to becoming Sweden's first woman prime minister when the ruling Social Democrat Party elected her as its leader in place of Stefan Löfven. Löfven, the current prime minister, wants to step down before national elections due in September of 2022. His minority coalition with the Green Party has struggled to survive since it came to power in 2014, and Andersson would need the backing from the Greens as well as the left and center parties to also succeed Löfven as the leader of the country. Neighboring Norway got its first female leader 40 years ago. Sweden's failure to follow suit has grated in a country that prides itself on leading the world in gender equality and has a self-described feminist foreign policy. The 54-year-old will become prime minister if a majority in the parliament does not reject her in a confirmation vote, probably this month. Support from the center and left parties is not a given, however. The center party wants changes to rules over forestry rights and building regulations in exchange for its support. Those policies are opposed by the Greens. A vote against Andersson could lead to a snap election or to moderate party leader Ulf Kristersson becoming prime minister. His center-right bloc is backed by the Sweden Democrats, a populist anti-immigration party that the Greens, left and center want to prevent from having a say in government policy. And, well, they should not. And that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day and the week, but you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on. And we will meet up on Monday for River City Hash Mondays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night and all weekend for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we'll meet up here on Monday, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.